I'm Gucci.
Oh, okay.
Andrew, you good?
Yeah.
Alright. Let me get out my document. So that's my fault. Thank you all for being here. Congratulations to the opposition to making it into eliminations. Thank you to my partner, and thank you to the judges for being here. And you guys for watching. Alright, let's start the debate now. Observation 1 is the resolution analysis. The resolution for today is that the United States federal government should substantially increase cooperation in space with the People's Republic of China. This is a policy round because of the presence of an actor and an action. The definition for substantially today will be from Merriam-Webster, and it's going to be considerable in quantity or quality. This round should be weighed through the lens of all-inclusive net benefits. Our plan today is that the United States federal government will substantially increase cooperation in space with the People's Republic of China by implementing NASA's OASIS plan with them. The actor is going to be the United States federal government. The funding and enforcement will be through normal means. And so some background of this. The OASIS plan currently is NASA's plan for a gas station, essentially a gas station on the moon, worked by using electrolysis, which is using the lunar ice on the moon, oxygen and hydrogen, and also solar power for future space development. These are the elements that powered the actual gas machine. So the advantage 1 to this is going to be space exploration and America and Chinese relations. Uniqueness 1. The OASIS station consists of approximately a 10-person crew in the current plan, and refueling tech powered by water, hydrogen, and the crew rotates 3 times per year. It's consisted of a 10-person crew, and refueling technology powered by water, hydrogen, and solar power, primarily. Uniqueness 2. OASIS would act as a refueling point for longer exploration missions than we have currently have ever been able to accomplish in the past. This means the potential of America and China to discover new planets, to extract more resources from new planets, to discover if there is any planets that would support life or currently support life and have potential for inhabitancy by humans. This just opens the door to endless possibilities for both of our nations. Alright, so the biggest cost barrier to space exploration currently is gravitational costs and Earth to moon fuel transportation. Ours would solve this by cutting the approximately $100 billion estimated cost of using regular fuel in half by using this process of a fueling station and powering it with electrolysis. Along with this, NASA would be free to create future negotiation agreements with China and have a mutually beneficial resource extraction relationship with China, where China and the United States have equal accessibility to the OASIS station, leading to possible future space infrastructure, possible combination missions of space exploration. It just opens the door to endless possibilities. Linked is that the plan passes and the United States federal government and China implement the OASIS plan. Internal link is going to be that resource extraction by the US and China is possible, and also future exploration opportunities are possible and very much likely. Internal link 2 is that we gain access to rare elements, including elements that are rare and also elements that are not rare. Their acronym is RE, rare earth elements, which are commonly used to create new green technology. They include nitrogen, gold, aluminum, etc. Which we have some of these resources and metals and products we currently have a shortage of on Earth, such as gold, and this would greatly benefit us because not only do we have the potential to create future Earth technology and space infrastructure with them in the future, but we can also use the elements for other things. Internal link 3 is that China and the United States relationships. It's in the space race right now. It's okay since China propositioned the plan for the roaming dragon. It's kind of been most of the United States or most people see it as China's incentive to prepare against United States threat or United States possibility of space militarization, which is reasonable since the United States is currently like one of the forefront leaders of the space race. It is reasonable for China to create a satellite that could deal with other forms of militarization possibly instituted by the United States. So our plan will increase relations between the United States and China and allow negotiation and contracts that prevent one country from abusing the privileges of garnering resources, garnering the benefits of the gas station on the moon, so that we have a mutually beneficial and accessible relationship to garner these resources and use them. Alright. So the impacts of this, there's a lot of good impacts to this. It's that foreign relations will increase, especially in the time of the space race, where it's critical that the United States is not the leader of escalation that could lead to space militarization. So increasing foreign relations and having mutually beneficial deals would be good for both parties, because they would eliminate the United States. They wouldn't eliminate the United States as a major threat, but they would increase the likelihood that China is willing to cooperate with us in future space exploration missions and future missions that might be beneficial to every party, because we're currently on the brink of global warming, and the green technology garnered from getting these minerals and resources might be key to mitigating, if not saving, the population. So resources for green technology. This also increases the U.S. image to China and China's image to the United States. It could decrease the possibility of us seeing each other as foreign entities, us just thinking that we should focus on our problem and their problem, not working on a mutually beneficial relationship that could help all of us, because we're all facing the same problem of global warming currently. And also accessibility. This is not going to be something that the United States, it's not going to be United States domain, it's going to be combined United States and Chinese domain that we have equal access to, and that we can both use to garner resources and do space exploration. Thank you.
Are you aware of the China-US civil space dialogue and what that entails?
Can you elaborate specifically what you're referring to? I'm vaguely familiar with
the China-US civil space dialogue that prevents NASA from collaborating with Chinese space operations. How does your plan interact with that policy?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not understanding the question correctly. Are you suggesting that there's a policy that makes this plan, like, you can't do it under existing legislation?
There's existing legislation that would prevent this sort of plan from being enacted or working. How do you interact with that?
As the affirmative, we have the right to fiat that this event actually does take place. Now we are arguing why it should.
Despite the current regulation? So do you remove the regulation, or do you just override the regulation?
Assumably we overrid it, just considering we do have fiat power.
Yeah.
We get to assert that this does take place.
It's a flaw in the resolution.
Sure.
This is
Okay. I just wanted to inquire about that. Sure. And you said that there are rare earth elements that can be mined on the moon, or are they like where are these resources?
On the moon and on other planets.
Okay, so they can be mined, and they're key to helping solve global warming. Who's going to mine them once China and America hypothetically get to the moon or other planets?
So this would be the respective employees of the space agencies for each nation, as well as the automated technology that's employed at these space stations.
Okay. It's going to be too off, then the criticism. Oh, then the case. Too off, then case.
Are you using multiple shoes for any of these?
Say again?
Are you need multiple sheets for any of these?
The second off, you may want a couple sheets out for. Judges ready? And the app. Cool. Let's start in the app. I pledge allegiance to the plan and its hypothetical implications, and to fiat, on which it stands, one framework, policy making, with access to politics for all. First argument is going to be technicality, not increase age, increase is defined as to become or make greater in size, amount, and intensity or degree. B is the violation. They don't increase U.S.-Chinese cooperation. The C point is going to be the standards. There are limits. The definition that limits best is going to be that limits most is going to be best because it allows for the most concise and precise interpretation of ways of the resolution. The second standard is going to be ground. They explode ground if they don't increase Chinese-U.S. cooperations. And the final argument is going to be predictability. We predicted the debate about the increase in Chinese cooperation, but they don't actually do that. The voting issue is going to be that this is about substantive access to cash, which is key to clash, and that's the internal link to fairness in education. So that's T. On to the criticism. The thesis of the criticism is that the debate space we compete in is a microcosm, a reflection of the nation state, the world that we live in. Violence, whether rhetorical or material, that happens outside of the room is reinscribed and translated into the room, particularly through the normative policy education format that our opponents present the affirmative case through. The first argument on the criticism is going to be the framework. The first argument on framework is that interrogating structures of power is fundamentally important for good epistemology. It allows us to understand why the state is motivated to act in the ways it does. In this case, as the affirmative presents it in the context of the app, why the USSG should substantially increase cooperation in space with the People's Republic of China. The second argument on framework is going to be that fiat is a bankrupt model of education for two important reasons. The first being that fiat is illusory. Our opponents say that, oh, we fiat that the plan happens, despite existing laws which say that it doesn't. That's somewhat nonsensical. I'll make the argument on case, but this is going to be a double bind. Either they don't get solvency because current U.S. laws forbid U.S.-Chinese space collaboration, or they have to abuse the hell out of fiat to just say that the plan happens in spite of the law, in spite of existing laws, which probably doesn't teach us a lot about how the real world actually works, because that's not realistic to say that the plan just happens despite existing laws in the books. They can't articulate a link between their discourse in the room and how policies or how materialize outside of the room, etc. The second reason, the B point here, is that fiat power is exclusionary because not all individuals have equal access to the political sphere, i.e. me and Jacoby, which means that fiat power is that fiat power which is predicated in the policy-making realm is not accessible and therefore not a good form of education because it literally excludes us, which leads to the third argument on framework, the framing for the debate. Proximal impacts come first. This includes in-round discourse, representations, and methodologies of the teams. We say that this is the most important because fiat discussions, as we just explored, don't actually make sense in the world of the affirmative in this round. So you evaluate the pre-fiat impacts. This is how the negative team chooses to test the affirmative, through the pre-fiat methodology of the app. Onto the criticism proper. The first argument is going to be that lunar development is driven in pursuit of space dominance, in the hegemonic pursuit of manifest destiny that America belongs in the next spot. That we need to move on, that it's our destiny to expand and collect and increase our power. And China feels the same way as well, surprise, surprise. This is going to be bad for several reasons, because space militarization is happening in the status quo. Mike Pence has announced the initiative for plans to create space marines. We're going to use the metaphor of like Star Wars. Space Marines, aka Stormtrooper Army. Cool. Donald Trump is going to build a lunar wall on the moon and the Death Star, and that's going to be problematic. These are all reasons why why the resolution is bad, because it allows the United States faster access to the moon. What about cooperation means that the United States won't seize all the fucking resources as soon as they get on the moon and use that to continue their militaristic and imperialistic agenda of militarization in space. They're going to pursue space dominance here. The next link argument is in the style of Gil Scott-Harris. Whitey on the moon. Hit it, Jacoby.
A rat done bit my sister Nell, cause Whitey's on the moon. Her face and arm began to swell, but Whitey's on the moon. I can't pay my doctor bill, but Whitey's on the moon. 10 years from now I'll be paying still. Why? Cause Whitey's on the moon.
Keep going.
The man just upped my rent last night, cause Whitey's on the moon. No hot water, no toilets, no lights, because
Whitey's on the moon.
was all that money I made for?
Whitey's on the moon.
How come there's no money here?
Because Whitey's on the moon.
I think I'll send my doctor. I think I'll send my Dr. Bill's airmail special to.
Whitey's on the moon. This creates several impacts. First, it's going to be the neoliberal dehumanization of millions of individuals. Our opponents say that there's going to be a mother load, like a big ass amount of rare earth elements that are going to be so important to mine, and that's just going to be done by the respected employees of NASA. Well, there aren't many respected employees of NASA, or well, they just aren't quantitatively very many for China or NASA themselves. So they're going to have to massively expand the personnel in order for this to be feasible. And who are they going to send to the moon?
Niggas, me, essentially.
Hundreds of billions of Chinese workers who are currently enslaved in the communist working class. This also creates several impacts here. So it's not just the dehumanization. So this is all reasons why the policy education format is problematic and bullshit. It doesn't actually account for social location of individuals. It recreates imperialist projects and nationalist agendas and hegemonic policies that increase militarism, that result in material and not just rhetorical, material violence against disenfranchised bodies. That's hundreds of millions of Chinese workers and an equivalent amount, and a comparable amount of American individuals, people of color who have constantly been exploited by the capitalist class. You reify those systems by saying it's a good thing for China and the United States to go and pursue those resources. We say no. Those sort of things are bad, and that's also a reason why this policy education is bad, because it just forces us to reinscribe violence and and take on violent actions and endorse violent strategies, which is a reason why we reject that strategy. Go to the alternative. We reject the resolution and renounce our citizenship to the debate space. We reject the resolution and renounce our citizenship to the debate space. We say this game we play is pretty fucked up, where we just get to pretend that shit happens in the real world, even if that's contradictory to what is happening in the real world. That pursuing violent and militaristic agendas is going to solve for global warming while disregarding the millions of people of color who are going to be exploited in the process. They reify superstructures of power and inscribe literal violence and death against those bodies. Couple arguments here. The role of the ballot is to be a wanted poster. Sign our names to put our faces on the wanted poster. The ballot is the tool of subversion against the debate space that breaks norms and says enough to the superstructure and power. The role of the judge is to pick a side. What is the best moral option in the round? We would advocate that the negative alternative is going to be the only ethical option in the round. On to solvency, briefly. We call out the bullshit policy education method as problematic. Also, we are probably the best form of engaging in politics, since fiat education is super contradictory. And finally, it's our acts of revolutionary criminality that re-signify what is valuable and important in debate. And that's why you're going to be voting for the negative team. We've presented a prior question, and we are the best method for solving it. They present a contradictory and violent strategy that you should reject a priori. Thank you.
So we've got 2 minutes flex, let's start that time now. Just for clarification's sake, and I'm pretty sure I understand where this comment is going. I just want to make sure. Towards the beginning of the framework that you offered, you made the assertion that you and your partner didn't have equal political access. Now, I do think I understand where you're going with this, but would you mind just kind of clarifying, for the judge's sake, what that actually means?
Sure, I'll let the Kobe answer this question. I'll write it down.
Okay, so what we essentially say is that the policy implementation in which the Wednesday promotes, i.e. you guys saying that we are going to somehow increase the bilateral or the cooperation with China, ultimately excludes the people that are going to be affected by that, i.e. the mechanisms in which the United States federal government is going to do it. For instance, one of your impacts, which talks about how you're going to get access with rare earth elements, who are going to be the people that are going to pick those elements, whether it's on Earth or it's on the moon. It's going to be people of color. It's going to be the cheapest, most quantifiable quality in which they do it. And 9 times out of 10, according to China, and also according to the United States, is people of color. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, actually, I do think it does.
So you think we have more access to this plan, or to this fiat?
Well, I mean, your defense of fiat, so I mean,
Okay.
your defense of fiat.
No, of course.
But do
Is
we
it-
have more
I
access to it somehow?
What do you mean, more access?
I think I do understand the question, so thank you. And just regarding the let's see, and just, again, just for clarification's sake, the argumentation being made is mostly a rejection of the resolution itself. Just for clarification, was that a fair way to categorize your argument?
Well, specifically, your presentation and engagement with the resolution is problematic, so rejection of the resolution
Gotcha.
rejects the,
Okay, thank you, I appreciate
So
that.
what's engaging with the resolution problematic?
the way that you engage to with it, yeah,
Okay.
there are, yeah.
Understood,
Okay.
thank you. Let's see. Okay, I believe I have 8 minutes. Set this up. I'm going to touch the K first, go on to the topicarity. I'll do our case. Sound good? I'm sorry? Sounds good, great. Let's go. All right, let's start. Speaking time, I'll begin. Now, so to begin on the framework here, let's start with turn on the reification of power structures. Upholding one methodology over others by weighing the critique before the case reifies hierarchical dichotomies of rationality that denies access to alternate modalities. The strengthening of power structures turns the critique because we would always be able to subjugate new modes of thought. Next turn on this is going to be silencing. Demanding that their K be weighed before our case silences our advocacy, our prep, and ontological position in the debate space. Asserting their control over our very right to exist is a form of an ontological abuse which justifies a world in which we can refuse to list opinions that we do not like. Next turn on this is going to be valorization. Instead of thinking critically to solve real-world sufferings, if you were to weigh this debate based on the K here, that's simply just focusing on the nebulous aspect, or like nebulous impacts with no concrete advocacy to get behind. Embracing an idea of caring only in service of their favorite philosophy prevents any real opposition from taking place here. Which, let's see. Next on the response to the K is going to be the argumentation about why fiat is actually a good thing. Subpoint on this is A is actually going to be caring. Fiat offers the opposition to uniquely care about impacts without regard for methodology, checking back against valorization, which I mentioned just previously here. Fiat is our chance to actually check back against this. B subpoint on this is going to be representation. Fiat uniquely allows every participant in the debate space to have an unsilenced voice. Role-playing is what is key to the empowerment of individuals that are unable to access real-world policymaking. They can come here, they can role-play, they can say, okay, for this instance, I am somebody that can advocate for a difference in the real world, regardless of whether or not when I walk out at the end of this room, at the end of this round, I'm going to be able to actually make that vote in, like, Congress, for example. Role-playing is their access to this. Role-playing is how they are empowered. The next point on this is actually going to be, fiat is kind of inevitable. At the end of the day, you're going to kind of have some sort of fiat in debate, and it's really the only thing that actually allows for any kind of clash at the end of the day. It's what actually empowers individuals and makes them want to show up here because now they have a voice. Next point on this is going to be the term on praxis. The affirmative team, an app ensures praxis, while like an affirmative advocacy, what we're actually offering with our plan ensures praxis, while voting on a case simply just is like, the case itself is really just a criticism without action. There's not really an advocacy to get behind here. What are you actually advocating for at the end of the day if you simply vote on like a critique of like the resolution in itself? Next round is going to be the ethic of rights. The plan that we have offered ensures ethics of rights, which essentially just means like we reorient this to allow, like I've already said, to give people access, make this actually a competitive environment, make this so people actually have opportunities to do things. This is an ethic of rights. People should be able to show up here. They should be able to say, listen, for the 35, 45 minutes that I'm going to sit here and argue my ass off in front of these judges and try to make a vote, or try to get them to vote for me, at the end of the day, I should be able to walk away from here thinking, yeah, I've convinced somebody of something, or I've at least been allowed to argue my case effectively, rather than simply throwing the resolution completely out the window and saying we shouldn't even have a conversation on this because I dislike it to begin with. We didn't really get to choose the resolution either, actually. Continue on this. Regarding the alternative here. Their alternative is inherently reactive rather than proactive, which means even if they are correct, they still end up losing ground, whereas in comparison, our plan is proactive, because we address the potential problem of space warfare ahead of time by declaring cooperation between the United States and the People's Republic of China. This dichotomy is significant because you can never solve a problem if you are always chasing behind it. Proactive solutions are inherently better than reactive solutions. And again, we can perm the alt. We can do this because if you can solve it on its own, like if you can solve the problem on its own, then ultimately, like with the K on its own, then it can definitely solve in a permutation with a plan. However,
if the alt is not strong enough to solve through perm, that means it definitely can't solve on its own in the real world. This is why you are going to buy the perm. And just kind of final commentary on the K. The argumentation about like how fiat is illusory. The problem with this is that their problem is with the resolution itself, not the plan. They don't have a problem with the plan. They have a problem with the resolution that they were given. Regarding the argumentation, there's no link between debate and the real world. I feel like I've pretty sufficiently proven that definitely there is a link between debate and the real world, but even if you don't buy this, plenty of debaters go out into the real world and become policymakers. Debaters do all sorts of things. Let's cite David Zaretsky, for example. David Zaretsky is a world-renowned communications scholar. He's actually a former debate coach. He actually influenced policymaking. He wrote books, and he's currently doing this. And how do I know that this is true? Because I'm currently sitting here citing him. Like, I don't know the guy personally. He was a debater. He went out and he influenced my own way of thinking, and that's why he's being brought up in trying to begin with. And regarding like the commentary, just for the commentary on this, they're basically asking us to weigh their system, the system that they have offered through their framework over any like real advocacy of a plan, which I've already explained why that's not exactly reasonable in this instance. And we reject the idea that like policy education in and of itself is actually a bad thing, when ultimately policy is something that can be used as a tool to create significant betterment for mankind as a whole. And again, like finally on this, and I will wrap this up. But regarding like the renunciation of their citizenship in the nation state that is debate, I want to make sure I got the terminology correctly. If that was the case, if they actually rejected that, if they truly renounced their citizenship in the debate space, they would choose not to participate. They wouldn't have had this debate in the first place. They would have simply said, we are so opposed to this resolution in and of itself, that they would have decided as soon as topic announcement occurred that they did not want to participate in the debate in the first place. They wouldn't have taken a 20-minute prep time to prepare this pretty complicated K and then come in and say that they didn't want to participate in the debate in the first place. Clearly they want to participate, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place. And I think they've actually done a pretty phenomenal job at debating so far. So I do think that they definitely want to participate in the debate space. I think that they truly care about this, and that's why they're here. I care about this too, and I'm really glad that I get to have this debate with you guys. Now, let's move on to the topicality argument. Ultimately, our definitions were. What's this say? What's this say? We meet our definitions were outlined contextually and defined. Ground we haven't violated, we haven't caused it, like really chewed them out any ground here or anything. Regarding the standards limits, we were pretty specific in our advocacy in our class. It actually has been, we've been pretty specific as far as what it actually is we're trying to do. There's been a very straightforward plan offered, how we're going to do it, who's going to be involved, what the impacts of this are. Ground, we offered pretty predictable ground. Like you can walk right in here and know what you should be talking about. Someone's definitely going to be talking about the US and China working together on like a lunar plan or a space plan in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of what you should have expected. Like predictability, definitely, we're by far the most predictable team in the round so far. Voters, we like to offer a counter voter. What's this one say? What's this say? They also didn't state that the topicality was a priority anyway. So just counter voter, you're going to be voting based on education. I've already explained why this is the most educational that we come here and debate on things that we're actually expected to debate on. Now regarding the advantage, they haven't rejected the advantage in and of itself. They have said that they have a problem with the resolution. Now, the advantage, we have made it very clear why this is ultimately a good thing. We have automation. We have 10 people on these crews with, that are like rotating 3 times a year. Ultimately, at the end of the day, our relationship with China is going to increase, and you're going to be voting based on like the magnitude of how important the relationship that we have with the world's second largest hegemon is going to have like a betterment of relationship, the mitigation of climate change in the long run. You're going to be voting on like the positive imagery and the accessibility.
So, how do you increase collaboration exactly?
Collaboration between the Republic of China.
How do you increase?
Oh, we increase collaboration because it's a joint effort. It's like a joint.
But what about the China-U.S. civil space dialogue that literally says it can't happen?
I stand by the statement that we do defend the fiat on this. We do defend the affirmative has the right to invoke fiat.
So you're saying that. So let me get. So are you? As I understand it, like in the real world of policy making, there are plans that say it can't happen, but the world of the app that says it does happen. Right?
So the wording of the resolution in and of itself invokes the idea that some sort of cooperative action is going to take place.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
So why did you talk about...
That being said, the affirmative can fiat that obviously it's going to take place.
Okay.
How y'all doing this evening?
Hey!
Hey, how y'all doing tonight? Alright, so this is what we're gonna do, right? The order is gonna be disordered. So, hey, that's it. That's it. Yeah. But if you get lost on where I'm going, first I'm gonna be starting off on the analysis of the critique, and then I'll be signposting on the stuff I'm gonna go. But it's gonna be disorderly. But you'll get what I'm doing. Take it and I'll write it all down. I got you.
We need more bad people, just like float out on a machine.
No.
It's gonna go slower than I was on TV.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean.
Yeah. All right. So, first starting off from framework on the overview, they literally mishandle the education of the critique in which we promote. Let's go ahead and extend the analysis that we talk about how fiat is intrinsically illusory. This is going to be a game winner for the negation team because we was successfully proven about how in the world of pre-fiat, they still do not answer that because they do not solve the proximal impact arguments in which we talk about. But also, even if you were to indulge within their world, they still don't even resolve those arguments on the method of the topicality flow. But we'll get into more detail about that. First, the argument was that we are picking and upholding particular elements of MPDA debate. First of all, there's no I'm not upholding which rules I decided to pick and choose within this debate round. The very fact that you want to use the rules in order to subject it towards you is going to be is going to be a DA towards your impact and towards your advocacy within this debate round, because at the end of the day, you ultimately try to shut out other elements of thinking by claiming that if you're not playing by these quote-unquote rules, then somehow you're breaking these rules, and these rules are going to be bad, but you're going to defend the rules by using the United States federal government and try to abide by the rules. So in actuality, the Speech Act is going to be a contradiction of the ideologies in which they try to talk about. And they said that fiat is inevitable. That does not mean that you should be engaging with the fiat, number one, and number two, no, it's not inevitable, because like we said before, you need to prioritize your proximal impact cause, because you cannot explain, as listed by Joel and myself, about how you personally has any cooperation with the United States and China. At the point at which you cannot even do that, you are going to be relying upon fiat, which means that we can create policies and policies all day until we're blue in the face, but those policies, the residual effects of those things will not be able to happen, which means that we're always going to be winning on the actual material bonds in which we talk about within this round. That's why we talk about Whitey on the moon. I can't pay my bills, but Whitey's on the moon. I either fiat or plan text. My sister, she got bit, but Whitey's on the moon, meaning that the 1AC does not do anything for the micro level violence that continues to be perpetuated upon people of color. You want to talk about dehumanization, you want to talk about accessibility, you need to be able to sufficiently answer the articulations in which we talk about that says about the domino effect, and about how you, as two debaters, have to have the access in order for you to engage with China and make your sovereignty proof as to for any of the three judges voting for you about how their ballot is somehow going to solve for this fiat assimilation, which I say is not going to be able to solve. Let's go into more detail. The second argument, or the third argument here, is that they said that we're silencing their advocacy. Like I said before, they're just trying to play the rules the same. They're just trying to play the rules and say that we're bad. What we're saying is that
Hold on. The argument here, they're saying that we're silencing them because we're telling the judges that you should weigh one set of impacts before another. No, they still get to weigh their impacts just against the pre-fiat impacts of the criticism. That's not silencing, it just means you have to evaluate the round in a certain way.
Yeah.
That's not silencing.
And then also, go ahead and extend the articulation that we talk about how role-playing and all of the actors of engaging with the United States federal government is net disadvantageous. And they say that we're trying to generalize, and we don't have any general specific links, but they concede the argument that Joel talks about within his first speech that talks about lunar cooperation is just another articulation for space for manifest destiny. For instance, when they try to defend fiat, which Joel is ultimately trying to pin them down on that, they say that fiat is good, but also what it does is that it ultimately denies you of your social location. Like I said before, the 13th, the 15th Amendment, the 14th Amendment were made to free the slaves, but the implications of that policy did not give weight. So for instance, Plessy versus Ferguson, we can talk about the civil rights, but that did not give weight until the actual material violence, for instance, of police brutality. But we make policies in order to try to cover police brutality, but we never look at the residual effects of those things, which ultimately means that you need to look at the effects of your policy making from your own social location before you can be able to sufficiently engage with that. That's why role-playing is key. Role-playing is key to political act. Yeah, well, when they say role playing is key to political access, it's not key to political access. Because like we said before, you can talk about the shit till you blue in the face, but when you don't look at the material balance of those things, don't be like a net disadvantage.
But think of the implication of what they say then, that role playing as crusty ass white people on Capitol Hill is key to my political access as a Filipino American, Jacoby's political access as a black American. The resolution and the policy making, the role playing that happens here is pretending that the two biggest hegemons in the world get to go out and colonize and militarize space passage. They're the motherfuckers that imprisoned me and colonialized me in the Philippines. They're the motherfuckers that enslaved Jacoby. That's not key to my access, and I refuse to accept that that's the only way I can learn about the political.
Exactly. Now let's go on the actual term about praxis, about how we need to have praxis evidence. The praxis is actually the negative speech when we talk about looking at the residual effects about these policies and the ways in which these policies from the macro level, meaning the element of policy making upon Capitol Hill, to me the beneficiary of that policy making and about how that is bad. We are literally that form of praxis. Any type of role playing distances yourself from actual praxis, and also number two, it actually distances you